everybody, and welcome to Horror Movie Yearbook. I am Tim.
And I am a Willie.
Willie, how is it going?
It's going.
Good.
It's going. Yep. Just, scratching and surviving, my friend. It's all good.
What are you playing? You said you've played a lot of games lately.
A lot of video games?
Yeah, you said you play a lot of video games. You playing anything currently?
No. I'm actually, I'm on my first video game break in months, actually.
Okay.
Well, I most recently finished The Warriors for our episode of Multimedium.
Oh, good plug.
Which is now available.
Yes.
So check that out. That's my most recent finish, but I got a Switch this year. And I've done Luigi's Mansion 3, which was wonderful. I've done Fire Emblem Warriors, which was a lot of fun. I did Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, which was fun. So I've been playing through stuff a little bit at a time, and yeah, it's been nice. I am not playing anything currently. Not sure what's next on the docket. We'll see.
Okay.
Right now I'm in comic book mode, so I'm reading a lot of comics, and that's kind of...
What are you reading?
Moon Knight, which we should talk about.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So I'm reading the original... It's tricky, because Moon Knight wasn't even given a proper origin until, like, his own miniseries, which was, like, well after he was introduced in comics. So you don't really know anything about him beyond, like, that he's Mark Spector and he dresses up in a white costume and beats up bad guys. But, man, I'm getting into some of this cool stuff where Doug Munch and Bill Sienkiewicz, who are like the major big creative team early on in Moon Knight, I'm getting into their first stuff with the character. And it's dark and cool, man. It's like they're like backup stories in issues of The Incredible Hulk. It's like the last 5 pages when they used to do that. And, like, they kind of got away with more because they were just backup stories. And it's dark, dude. Like, dudes fighting werewolves that are leading terrorist organizations, which is sweet. I should say sword-wielding werewolves that lead terrorist organizations. Right. Then the next issue, he's fighting a serial killer who's wearing a Halloween mask and killing people with a hatchet. This book rules, man. Yeah. Yeah. And it's got that grungy, heavy on the inking look to it with the art, where everything looks like it's kind of dripping dark liquid or something. It's very cool. I like it. I'm having fun with it. Yeah. Anyway.
Nice.
Yeah. What are you doing? What do you do?
I'm looking at my phone right now because I've got the game notes, but my credit. I left my credit card with my wife. She keeps charging it, so keep not. No, it's we're going on vacation. We're going whitewater.
Oh my! I was like, that's strange.
We're going to Colorado, and we're going whitewater rafting coming up.
Have you been?
I have not.
Whitewater rafting. Have you been to Colorado? Yes.
I've not been to Colorado.
Oh, no.
My wife has. She has been whitewater rafting, and she says this is a level 3, and she says she went with a couple of people who have never done it before, and they said, I'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Okay, you've been?
Yeah, I've done 3s.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll be all right.
The main is 6, right? Like, 6 is the high point?
I think so, but human beings don't generally do those. I mean, like
6 is like Niagara Falls.
It's like yeah, exactly. It's like somebody who is like got a death wish will do those. Okay. I've done 3s and 4s. Okay. 4 was the highest I've ever done, and there were only 1 or 2 rapids or falls that I did that were 4s. So my suggestion to you, and this might seem kind of crazy for your first time, but I say go for it. If you can get in the lead oar position, okay, which is like right up front, up in the left, yeah, you're the first person to see all the crazy shit that you're going to drop off of and stuff, but it's kind of sweet for your first time because, like, once you get through one section, you're going to go, I feel good. Like, yeah. I'm not afraid of this shit anymore. Yeah. I feel like if you're in the middle or the back and then you get moved up front for your second or third time, you'll get nervous again. Right. Just do it all up front. Okay, because it is one of those ones that, like, they take you down, and then they take you back up again, and they take you down. Rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah. If you can get into the lead oar position first, or get up front first, just do it. I'm doing the Colorado River. I think it's called the Upper Eagle. Upper Eagle? Okay. Yeah, Upper Eagle. So okay. We'll see how it goes. So I should be back next time. You'll be good. You'll be fine. Okay. You're gonna have a good time. Okay. They'll tell you literally everything you could possibly need to know, but you'll have fun. You'll want to do it again, I bet. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'm not an adrenaline junkie guy. But I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. Cool. So you'll dig it. Cool. I was in California. Okay. But yeah. Anyway. Very cool. Very cool. Well, hopefully
Hopefully this thing goes. I'll let everybody. I'll update everybody when I get
Tim's
back.
not back next episode. He had a whitewater rafting accident.
So you talked about multimedia. Yeah, we just did the Warriors game and movie, and then also my book came to my Battle Royale book, Battle Royale. I should say.
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale.
Yes.
So that came today. So we'll be doing that next time. The Game Nerds. Brian finally got a PS5.
Okay.
This is big news. Big news for him. He's been wanting to get one.
Excellent.
They're talking about Demon Souls, Ghost of Tsushima, Astro's Playroom, and Psychonauts 2. Alex, he's replaying the mainline Metroid games right now.
Funny, yeah. He texted me actually
Okay.
today and goes, "Hey, do you want to play this Metroid game?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll play it." So he's going to be dropping it off to me tomorrow, which is cool. And a 3DS, which is good because I don't have one, so I wouldn't have been able to play it. I'm glad that he realized that when he texted me. I'm like, I hope he knows I don't have a 3DS.
You like the mainline Metroid games, correct?
Yeah.
You're
mean,
not
like,
a Prime guy.
No.
Okay.
I'm not a first-person shooter guy.
I
think that's the issue.
The Prime games I liked. I played them on the Wii when they came out with that trilogy pack. Okay. But they are a bit tough at times.
I think I've only actually finished one Metroid game.
Yeah, I think I may have finished the first one.
I think I finished Zero Mission on
Okay.
Advance or whatever system that was on handheld. I don't know that I've ever actually finished.
I'm saying I finished it. I don't think I have, actually.
I don't even know if I've actually finished one. I like the games, but I get bewildered eventually and I just give up.
The backtracking is...
It's too much for me.
Yeah.
But I really like the world of Metroid. I think is awesome.
Yeah.
The look, the sound, very cool.
So he's talking about that. He's talking about Metroid Dread. You were just on the Film Nerds talking about... What were you guys talking about? Loki?
We talked about Loki.
Suicide Squad, right?
Yes, they talked about Suicide Squad, which I still haven't seen. Yeah, we talked about Loki, Suicide Squad, and then they talked about Remembrance?
The Jackman movie.
Yes. Yeah, Hugh Jackman, Rebecca Ferguson, I think, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, a few different topics. We had a special guest on there, Mr. John Street, who has been on a Tiny Terror with us before, so it was fun. Good time.
Speaking of John, we've got a bonus episode coming out next week where we're going to cover John's bracket and a couple other people's picks.
Yeah, so yeah, you'll be able to enjoy or yell at or whatever you may do our picks.
Yes.
For our Raimi bracket, and then you can listen to some other folks. It'll be fun.
Yeah, so we're going to do that. If you want to get that early, patreon.com/MidwestPodNet. You can get that a week early. I'm going to be putting up an honor roll. Willie, I watched Neil Blomkamp's new movie called Demonic.
How was that?
Oof. Neil, buddy, knock it off.
Not good, eh? Yeah, he's one of those guys, and I don't think this happens that often, but it does happen. He's one of those guys where I think he...
May have peaked early?
I think he had like one really good idea in him, and he was able to get it financed and made, and then they go, "What else you got?" And he went, "Eh."
Is that a good impression of him?
And this does happen.
It does. I'm still. I mean, I'm not telling him to stop. I'm not telling him to not watch it. Not telling him to stop making movies.
Yeah.
This one was not for me. So I'll be talking about that one. A couple other movies. I watched Boss Level starring Frank Grillo.
Okay.
Which rocked. And so yeah,
it's Frank Grillo. So
yeah, I'll have a new honor roll up this weekend, and you can check that out.
Excellent.
Early patreon.com/MidwestPodNet. You ready to do this bracket?
Let's do it. Let's dive right in, man.
Yes.
I'm excited.
So this is the Raimi bracket. Sam Raimi, of course. This is not the Ted Raimi bracket, unfortunately.
Which would be wonderful as well.
Yeah, I did not clarify. I just realized that. Old Sam was born in Royal Oak, Michigan, which is nearby where we're at.
Very close.
Yeah, he's an inventive filmmaker. Everybody, horror movie yearbook-wise, probably knows him mostly from the Evil Dead movies, I would say.
Yeah, Drag Me to Hell, maybe.
Drag Me to Hell. But, of course, the Spider-Man movies as well. He started out doing low-budget horror movies. You can see in his movies he's influenced by kind of like slapsticky Three Stooges comedy. He does a lot of Hitchcock stuff, especially later on when he started to focus more on, I think, storytelling wise. And we'll get into that a little later. But he's had a career that's kind of alternated between like big budget blockbusters and smaller horror flicks. So we're going to cover them all today.
Yeah,
Sam is this was one I floated by you because Sam Raimi is probably, there are certain directors where, like we've talked about with Carpenter And I know you with Romero, where we kind of like everything they do, or we at least find value in everything they do.
Yeah. I would say Carpenter and Romero both. Those are two for me where when you say that, I go, yeah, those two for sure. Even the stuff that I recognize is not very good, like I find something in it that I enjoy.
Yes.
Yeah, Ridley Scott's another one.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott's one is like he can make, and he's made some stinkers recently. But I still always enjoy some aspect of them.
Yep.
Yeah, I do.
And for me, Raimi's like that for me. And he's just kind of a filmmaker I kind of jive with,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just, I have a lot of similar sensibilities. I really like slapstick. I really like horror. And it's just, I have, like I said, the same sensibilities, I think, as Sam Raimi in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
When it comes to what I like out of movies, he likes to make pure entertainment a lot of the time. But there's some stuff, I think, too, thematically that you can chew on if you want. So
yeah, I would agree.
Any thoughts on Sam Raimi before we get started here?
I mean, he's an immensely talented filmmaker and person, and I think he really, especially with the original Evil Dead, I mean, he's one of those kind of Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. If you ask a lot of directors or filmmakers, just people that work in film, if you ask them their inspirations, oftentimes you hear somebody mention Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, especially people who make genre work or are known for genre work, because those are two of those perfect examples of movies where, like, you were entranced and into the plot and the performances and the story and the gore and the blood and guts stuff, but you could also see the wires in the best way possible. Like you could figure out how they achieved the many different things they achieved in those movies. I would say especially in Evil Dead 1, you can really figure it. I mean, you can see it. But yeah, I think that he inspired a lot of young people to get out there and make movies, which is very cool.
Yes, for sure. So let's get into the Raimi bracket. Let's start on the left side as I'm facing it right now. We're going to start with the 1 seeds, but the way it worked out, because we have 14 movies we have to talk about here.
Right.
So it worked out kind of weird. So Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 get a pass because those are his highest rated movies. And for anybody that hasn't listened to one of our bracket episodes before, we go up going by IMDb score. And this one's kind of surprising when I looked at the seeds. Because there are a couple that are pretty low seeded, in my opinion. I was a little bit taken aback by. But let's start on the left side of the bracket. We're going to have For Love of the Game versus Drag Me to Hell. So For Love of the Game, after 19 years of playing, that's got an IMDb score of 6.6. After 19 years of playing the game he's loved his whole life, Detroit Tigers pitcher Billy Chappell has to decide if he's going to risk everything and put it all out there. This is the Kevin Costner, Kelly Preston, John C. Reilly starring movie.
Yes.
And then it's going to be going up against Drag Me to Hell. A lone officer who evicts an old woman from her home finds herself the recipient of a supernatural curse. This has got an IMDb score of 6.5. Alison Lohman, Justin Long, and David Paymer. Willie, who you got in this first matchup?
This is truly a tale of two Raimis, yes?
That's kind of how it's going to go a lot of the time.
A lot of the time, especially early on, yeah. Well, and these movies kind of perfectly encapsulate the two really kind of amazing and brilliant things about Sam Raimi, right? So For the Love of the Game, you've got his amazing heart and he's got a sense of brightness and a sense of optimism about his films, but it's never tongue-in-cheek, really, and it's never handled in a cynical way. It's always handled... He kind of wears his heart on his sleeve as a filmmaker, and he really believes in the optimistic view that some of his movies, including many moments in the Spider-Man films, he really truly believes. He's an optimist, I think, in a lot of ways, and that comes through. And it can be a little bit schmaltzy at times, but it's never. He knows when to turn that on, and he knows he's turning it on, and it's okay. Drag Me to Hell's the other Raimi, where it's like loud, boisterous, slapsticky, gory, loud, crazy, nuts, just batshit. Both from a filmmaking perspective and just the plot and the concept of the movie. And man, does that movie have a ballsy ending. I still want a sequel.
Yep.
For me, it's Drag Me to Hell. For the Love of the Game is really a I think a very, very good movie. I think it's lesser Raimi. I think it's in the lesser end of his filmography. It's not certainly the lowest for me, but it's on the lower end for me. But that's not to say it's not a good movie. I actually think it's quite good. I think Costner gives a pretty good performance, if I remember right, too. It's been a while, but yeah, for me, Drag Me to Hell is not only is I think one of Raimi's best movies, because I think he took everything he learned in the big budget studio system, working on movies like, like even like The Quick and the Dead, but certainly the Spider-Man movies. He took everything he learned from those and was able to kind of get back to basics, back to his roots approach, utilizing a little more money a lot more money and a lot more experience. And so you get kind of the best of both, I think, from Drag Me to Hell. You get everything I love about those Evil Dead movies, and you get everything I love about what he's able to accomplish with his big budget stuff. So it's Drag Me to Hell for me, but I think For the Love of the Game, honestly, is worth a look for sure. For sure.
So I am going to go with Drag Me to Hell as well. I think, and I'll get into it a little bit more later, I think Drag Me to Hell, I like to call it my second favorite Evil Dead movie. And I guess that kind of spells some of my picks, but we'll get into what my favorite Evil Dead movie is later. I like For Love of the Game. It's an incredibly, like you mentioned, it's an incredibly earnest movie. I think he carries that. There's a Seeger song, I think, that plays quite a bit. I think it's Against the Wind.
Yeah.
And Against the Wind, here's the thing with Seeger is like Seeger's even like more earnest than like Springsteen. Like Seeger's like kind of corny and cheesy. And
yes.
But there is, I mean, there's a truth to it. Like that's what it is. And so it's almost cringe-inducing how kind of cheesy it can be at times. Mm-hmm. It also, I like it, but it does feel like a movie that's kind of Raimi's sensibilities at war with like a Kevin Costner baseball flick.
Okay.
It is probably my second favorite Costner baseball flick. Bull Durham is one. I'm not a big Field of Dreams guy.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand why it has a special place in people's hearts.
But the baseball specific scenes, like when Raimi is shooting those baseball things, I think they're awesome. Mm-hmm. Like, I think he's got a real handle on it. And this was his first real big budget movie. A Simple Plan and Darkman weren't real big budget flicks. This is a big budget Kevin Costner kind of like tentpole drama for the studio. And I think he does a lot of things well here. I do think it's a little bit... God, castrated is the only word that's coming to my mind, but you kind of know what I mean there. It's a little bit, yeah, it's not Raimi at full power. It's Raimi trying to make a movie for the studio.
Yeah, and we've seen this. We mentioned both Romero and Carpenter, and there are movies they made that you can see. Certainly, that doesn't mean they're bad movies, but you can tell they're more made for the studio, right, than they are for their individual passions per se. So
one real quick thing before we say goodbye to For Love of the Game, because we both got it out. Kevin Costner originally showed his penis in the movie.
I'm sorry, what?
Costner told Newsweek that the studio lacked real courage by insisting that the film have a more kid-friendly rating, so they cut the scene in the audience. I'm guessing it was probably a shower scene in the locker rooms.
It probably wasn't some sort of
where you get to see Kevin Costner's penis, because a lot of focus groups went. That was kind of weird when we saw.
Yeah, we didn't see his penis.
We went to this baseball game. We made a movie out of a baseball game and saw Kevin Costner's penis hanging.
Amazing.
So, all right, let's move on from that. Next up, we have A Simple Plan.
Mm-hmm.
A Simple Plan. Three blue-collar acquaintances come across millions of dollars in lost cash and make a plan to keep their find from the authorities. But it isn't long before complications and mistrust weave their way into the plan that has a score of 7.5, starring Bill Paxton, Billy Bob Thornton, and Bridget Fonda. I believe this was written by Billy Bob as well, I want to say, or it's based on a novel. No, The Gift is the one written by Billy Bob, correct?
He wrote The Gift.
Okay.
Him and Raimi were kind of... They partnered up on a couple different things around this time, or not. They seem to become buddies there for a hot second,
right? And then Spider-Man 3, score of 6.2. A strange black entity from another world bonds with Peter Parker and causes inner turmoil as he contends with new villains, temptations, and revenge. Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, Topher Grace,
J.K. Simmons.
Who's my Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah.
That's got a score of 6.2. Willie, who you got here in this matchup? What a weird matchup.
Yeah, very bizarre. Two very different movies.
Yes.
For me, it's Simple Plan. Simple Plan is like a really great Coen Brothers thriller, but directed by Raimi. And those are two things I like, and they're it's a nice marriage of the two. It's got it's got a great cast. It's got great performances. I think it's a story that could have worked under any director, but the fact that it's Raimi doing it just makes it so much more. Spider-Man 3, it's got Bill Paxton too, I should mention, who's like one of my all-time favorite actors. Yeah. So anyway, Spider-Man 3 is a very flawed film. I don't think it is always this absolute abysmal piece of crap that some people make it out to be. I think I made it out to be that for a long time. I don't think that's 100% fair. I think it is pretty true to what was set up in the first two movies in terms of the tone and stuff. I do think anything involving Venom or the symbiote costume falls flat on its face, if I'm being honest. Unfortunately, that's a lot of the movie. Unfortunately.
So is this where we should talk about it a little bit? Because I think we're both going to say goodbye to Spider-Man 3. I think we should talk maybe for a second.
Yeah.
Venom was kind of forced on him, correct?
Yeah, Avi Arad wanted Venom.
Avi Arad, the kind of head man at Sony, head of the Spider-Man movies at that time, producer-wise, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He was in charge of like a lot of the Marvel stuff, I think, too. Because he would have been in charge of like Ghost Rider and all the other Sony stuff.
Right. And Sam has Raimi has a very obvious kind of connection and love for those classic Spider-Man villains. Like, yeah.
Right. And so my understanding is this. So there was no agreement for Raimi to do anything beyond 3. He had agreed he had signed up for a trilogy, I think, or at least 2 more after the first one was a success, something like that. He had no commitment to do another one. I think the studio was like planning on this being the final one, and everybody was kind of planning on this being the final one, which it would wind up being. I know that Tobey Maguire, who had quite a bit of pull at this point with these movies and with Raimi, really wanted Sandman because apparently Tobey Maguire is a big Spider-Man fan.
They talked about it. I remember the lead up to during 2 there, because the people would ask him who's going to be the villain in the next one, and both of them. But yeah, you're right. Tobey especially talked about Sandman, and Raimi was really excited about kind of the visual possibilities of it as well. And I do think those hit in this movie. I think Sandman, the visual stuff for that.
Yeah. The Birth of Sandman you've mentioned before is one of your favorites, right? It
rules. It's awesome, and Christopher Young's score is phenomenal.
It's really good. But so Tobey really wanted Sandman because Tobey's a classic Spider-Man fan.
Right.
He wanted a villain from the comics that, like they had done before, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus. You think of things like Mysterio or the Vulture or Electro, things like that. That's what he wanted, right? Raimi, I know, wanted to continue and close out the Harry stuff.
I always forget about the Harry stuff in this movie too. There's
because
so
that was
much
something
going
that
on.
he was building to throughout the course of the movies ahead of this. And I believe Raimi also was interested in finally pulling the trigger on Kirk Connors. So there was some of that then. And then Arad came in and said, no, you got to do Venom. And you can see why the movie can be a bit of a mess
right.
at times. I do think there's great moments in the film. I really, truly do. But I do think
weirdly enough for me, except for maybe the retcon, even that doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but most of the great moments for me revolve around Sandman.
The stuff when it's just Spider-Man versus Sandman really works.
Yeah.
And I even think some of the Harry stuff works. It's silly that he gets knocked out.
The amnesia, yeah.
Because they just we don't have anything for this guy to do.
Even that, sometimes I forgive that kind of stuff because that would totally happen in a 70s Spider-Man comic.
True.
That's the thing is, those first two remind me of Lee Ditko comics, Stan Lee comics. The third one reminds me of some Jerry Conway Spider-Man comic from after that. So I do have a little bit of a soft spot for that. So sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. But yet, I don't know. I think that there's really some strong moments. My biggest gripe with Spider-Man 3, honestly, it's not that it's overstuffed, which it is. It's not that there's it can be kind of a mess, which it can be. It's that I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and I kind of love Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane. She could be kind of written, sometimes, but I'll forgive it. But like, I love these versions of these characters a lot. Like, I grew to love them over the course of 2 movies, and I think that's A, because those movies are very good, especially the second movie, and B, because they came at such an important formative time in my life that I felt a bond and a connection with these versions of the characters. And like I said before, Raimi is so optimistic and so kind of full of there's a sweetness and a tenderness and a level of joy in those Spider-Man films. And Spider-Man 3 ends really like it's dour as hell. It's a bummer. It doesn't end nicely. There's no sense of...
We're talking about 2 of the most cynical Sam Raimi movies.
True.
Simple Plan and this, but Simple Plan is meant to be that way. Yes.
It should be. Spider-Man 3 ends like it's a bummer. And I wonder if maybe that is because at that point there were talks of him coming back and doing 4. So he was going to be able to go back and maybe continue on from where he leaves those characters. But if I'm being honest, this is probably the biggest reason I'm excited for this new Spider-Man movie. If rumors are true and Tobey Maguire may be involved in some way, shape, or form, if I can get my happy ending for the Tobes Spidey, I'll be happy. So, because you don't get that here, you really don't.
No, you don't.
It's a
very bittersweet ending here.
There's a sadness.
Both of those characters,
I don't know about you, but like I've always felt like when there's characters I really love and I've followed for a length of time, whether it's a TV show or a series of films, and things end on a note that feels incomplete in some way or feels and just not satisfying. That always I can't like that will forever bug me. Like it will forever bother me. And so that's always bothered me about Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is I want those characters to get more of a closure for me personally. I would like that.
And I want Raimi to as well.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
That's why I'm happy he's coming back for Doctor Strange, just because I want to see him play in that kind of world again.
And that's actually why I liked one of the reasons why I like Days of Future Past. If I'm like, which I know is not a perfect film, and I don't think it's even one of the best X-Men movies necessarily. It's up there, which is not saying a ton sometimes, but I liked the ending because now the Raimi Spider-Man characters and actors and performances are more important to me, I think, than the X-Men 1 and 2 ones are. But still, I mean, those were formative movies for me too. Sure. Those X-Men movies. So it was nice to see like Famke's Jean Grey and Marsden's Scott Summers and stuff get like kind of a happy ending at the end of Days of Future Past. It was like, oh, this is nice. Like I don't have to feel bad about how those movies ended anymore.
Right.
Anyway, so it's Simple Plan for me. There we go. Back to it.
Simple Plan for me as well. Simple Plan is kind of perfect, and we're going to get to it a little more later. But it like we said, it's as cynical as Sam can get. You mentioned it being kind of like a Coen Brothers movie. It definitely is. It definitely feels like a Blood Simple or a Fargo, and you don't see that often from Sam. I think I'm a little higher on Spidey 3 than some. I always have been. I remember that.
You always have been.
Yeah, that word of mouth early was toxic, and
it was brutal.
It was brutal, and then I went and saw it, and I'm like, it wasn't that bad. Where it falls apart for me is honestly, I'm with it. Even the stuff I don't like, I'm with it until like that meeting between Sandman and Venom in the alley.
That is the moment the movie turns.
It is so lazy, and I can't believe
it's embarrassing.
It's bad, and then honestly, the final fight isn't very good either.
No,
because it's also just overstuffed, and he's cutting back and forth between Hal Fishman, the news guy,
which is terrible.
Yeah, it's just that's where it goes off the rails. Because even I've always liked the dance scene. I remember it's weird. Everybody hated the dance scene. Like that was the stuff I prepared myself for.
That stuff doesn't actually bother me that much. Like it's lame. It's not very good. I wish we got more of a. But it's Raimi's version of the evil suit. Like
it's the only part to. The theater I was in came alive during that. They loved it because they were on the same wavelength as maybe Raimi was or V was, which is like, hey, Peter Parker's kind of a dork. Like he wouldn't be
like murdering people. He would be he'd
be dancing around like a dork,
pointing finger guns. Yeah.
So anyway, they were all along with it. But it's also those two scenes, that one and then the jazz one, which I always forget about as well. Those are the only two scenes where like Raimi kind of comes alive a little bit in this one because it's not the same guy. And even personally I don't think it was, because Danny Elfman, who they were good friends with, and they have reconciled from what I've read, was like that guy during Spider-Man 3, because he was not brought back from 2 to score them. He's like, I didn't know that guy on part 3. Is what he said about Raimi.
Wow.
And so I think a lot of it has to do with just kind of the studio interference. And
he was tight. I mean, didn't he do those back to back to back?
Yep. Yeah, he did all those. How
exhausted you'd be.
He was tired. That was all he did too. He just did the Spider-Man movies. He didn't do anything in between. And then you had the studio interference and all that stuff. So, and I'm with you. It's just not a good capper to that trilogy. And I'm hoping to see some sort of resolution as well. But I've got a simple plan as well. All right, next up, we've got Spider-Man. Do we need to go? Yeah, when bitten by a genetically modified spider, he becomes Spider-Man. Score of 7.3. Starring the same people as 3, except Willem Dafoe's in this one. And this is going up against Oz the Great and Powerful. A small-time magician is swept away to an enchanted land and is forced into a power struggle between 3 witches. James Franco, Michelle Williams, or Rachel Weisz, and Zach Braff, I believe, as the monkey.
Oh my God, is that right?
Yes, I believe so. So... welcome to Horror Movie Yearbook, where we talk about Spider-Man and Oz the Great and Powerful. Willie, who you got in this horror-fueled matchup?
The least horror-related we've ever talked about, I think.
Yeah. Simple Plan and Drag Me to Hell, at least for horror movies, on this side of the bracket.
Yes.
We get more horror-related on the other side of the bracket. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. I've got... Oh, man. I've got Spider-Man, because it's better. You know what? I don't hate everything about Oz the Great and Powerful. I think in theory, Raimi doing an Oz movie makes a lot of sense, actually. I just don't think it feels terribly Raimi to me. It feels like a Tim Burton Wizard of Oz movie to me. It feels like Raimi trying to be Tim Burton a little bit.
It felt like those Disney kind of remakes that were like the Burton Alice in Wonderland stuff.
Yeah, which is a fine movie.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was fine, but I expected more from Raimi, I guess. Or different. A little darker, maybe. A little more... a little bit more of like a Raimi twist on Alice in Wonderland. This just kind of felt like... Or on Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
This just kind of felt like a Disney Wizard of Oz movie. And so I wasn't really fully committed. I also think some of the performances are kind of... Franco's okay. Not in real life as a person, but in this movie. Kunis is weird. When she gets witched, when she turns into the witch, spoiler alert, she's not great, I don't think, at that point.
There are probably other people that can speak to this better than me, and I remember there being quite a bit of even I don't want to call it controversy, but people people saying hey, the female characters in this movie, there's some elements that maybe don't hold up well.
Yeah.
But,
no.
Yeah, and I think that might have something to do, because I think I know what you're talking about too, but it's been so long since I've seen this movie too that I cannot remember.
It's been a while, but I would agree with those sentiments. And ultimately, it's a very forgettable movie, which is is always a sin. Like, at least a bad movie or kind of a crummy movie in somebody's filmography, you remember, even if it's for the wrong reasons, there's memorable moments because clearly there was something you remembered about the movie.
We just remember every bit of Spider-Man 3.
Exactly. and I don't like Spider-Man 3
right.
as a whole. But with Oz, I don't remember anything about Oz hardly. I remember flashes of it.
Yeah, I remember the monkey.
And
yeah.
I
remember the monkey bits. It was weird, if I recall correctly, too, because they didn't... the rights to the original Wizard of Oz movie, which everybody remembers, are held up, so they couldn't reference certain things, they couldn't use certain musical pieces and stuff. So you're left with this weird thing that's paying homage to a movie that they can't
truly dip their toes into or get into. Yeah. I remember that. That's funny. But yeah, no, Spider-Man 1, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but it's really, what's funny is a lot of those early, and I'm not taking the earliest comic book superhero movies, that second wave. So we're talking post-Batman, post-Burton Batman and Christopher Reeve Superman, post that very early kind of the scattershot stuff that would come out, you'd get a random Captain America movie in the late 80s, early 90s. It was direct to video, or the Dolph Lundgren Punisher. There was that scattershot stuff. The first three in kind of the modern pre-MCU, I guess, pre-shared universe comic book movies were Blade, Spider-Man, and X-Men.
Yes,
those are the ones that I
and these three were really important too, especially X-Men in a way, because they came out after Batman and Robin,
right?
Which everybody had thought had killed.
It was over. Yeah. And out of those three, and I've seen them all relatively recently, Spider-Man I think is the one that really still holds up. I think X-Men feels pretty dated. If I'm being honest, It really does. I still have fun with X-Men. I still have a soft spot for X-Men, but it very much feels like a product of its time.
For sure.
Like, very much.
It's a movie, too, that feels embarrassed at times by its origins.
100%.
And Spider-Man does not at all.
Not even for a second.
Even the Goblin costume, which I think people had argued about kind of being that way, the Goblin costume is just... It's them trying to figure out a way to make that costume work in a movie. It just doesn't.
Fine.
Right.
Yeah. It is what it is, right? And I think Blade's very good as well, no doubt about it. But I do think,
for sure, yeah.
But Blade shows its age too in a lot of ways.
Well, also the weird thing about Blade is like Blade the character in the comics, like he kind of sucks. Like, not pun not intended. But like he's kind of like Blade has never been for me. I've never read a Blade comic that I'm like, oh sweet, make that into a like Blade worked because. It's a awesome movie, and Wesley Snipes is awesome.
Yeah, Wesley really kind of cemented that character as a kind of an indelible, for sure. But Spider-Man 1 still holds up, and Spider-Man 1 is not the best Sam Raimi movie, and it's not even the best Spider-Man movie. It's the best Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. But I'll watch Spider-Man 1 before I'll watch either of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. And I'll watch it before I'll watch either of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Now we're getting spicy. Now we get some spicy takes. That's what I like.
I'm just saying. I would. Do I think some of those movies do certain things better maybe than the first Spider-Man movie? Yeah, sure. But I also recognize that this movie came out a lot earlier and could have failed so miserably and could have been such a disaster and a mess. And it still holds up. And that's a huge feat. Plus, Willem Dafoe. What a national treasure.
I think people, maybe, I don't mean to speak, but I think what's great about that first movie and those first two movies, I'm sorry, even the three movies, is like that cast for a big budget superhero movie is crazy that like they went with these. Tobey Maguire was like a kid from like Cider House Rules.
He had done a couple movies, but nothing. Had he done Pleasantville? Yeah, he'd done Pleasantville.
But I mean, he was more of an indie, kind of an indie.
He wasn't a superhero.
Kirsten Dunst was. I mean, she was a pretty decent sized star. She had done like Bring It On and stuff. I think by that point, but
she might have been the biggest star of the bunch.
I think she was. And then Dafoe was Dafoe.
Defoe's Dafoe.
Yeah, it's a very cool, almost like indie cast for those things, and I think it in some ways it set the template for the best, because it wasn't just trying to cast a big star in those movies. You know what, I guess you could go back to maybe Keaton as Batman, but even that Batman had Nicholson as the Joker.
Well, but we have to remember too that when Keaton was cast as Batman, that was a weird. People were not excited about that.
No, for sure. Yep.
Keaton was known as a comedic actor. People thought that was like a bad call. You know, what's funny to me is that we know Keaton's back for the new Flash movie. That's confirmed and out there, and like I said, the big rumors right now are that Tobey Maguire is involved in the new Spider-Man in some capacity. It's crazy to think that we could see both of them back in costumes by this time next year. It's so weird. I don't know. They know how to play off the nostalgia, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, it's working on us.
It's going to sucker me in. I'm going to go see that Flash movie because I want to see Keaton in the Batman costume again.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I do.
Yeah.
Because I have a soft spot for Burton's Batman, too. So.
Yeah, I love it.
Anyway.
We'll do a Burton's Batman bracket. Just those two movies.
Shit. I like Batman Returns. I'm not going to.
Me too.
I'm not going to pretend I don't.
So you got Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, for sure.
As far as origin stories go, I don't. It's this one and Donner's Superman and Favreau's Iron Man for me.
I was going to say Iron Man is the other one.
Yeah, those three, and I think they have a lot in common. Yeah. And some of what they have in common is they are incredible for like the first 2/3 of the movie, and then the third act is like kind of the weakest of all of them. but
yes,
because even
I'd agree.
Even Donner
the third act still works in all three of them, but
yes,
but it is
no,
the
agree.
weakest part certainly. By the time you get to the third act, you're kind of emotionally invested enough to just be like, let's just beat this bad guy. Let's take it home.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, well, like you said with that, I don't remember it. I like the bits with the monkey. I remember I liked I saw it in 3D, and I really liked Raimi's use of 3D. I think, if I recall correctly, he did a good job of that.
Doesn't surprise me.
And the first 10 to 15 minutes are black and white, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Smart.
So there are some cool Hollywood throwbacks, and it's Raimi, if I remember. Oh, yeah. You know what? In my research, I found out us Michigan taxpayers, even though Oz the Great and Powerful is based on the novels, the taxpayers of the state of Michigan reimbursed Disney $40 million of this film's budget, but have no equity in the film.
Yeah, how does that work?
What the hell?
Yeah, how do we get screwed out of that? It's funny.
And you know what? Make a more memorable film if you're going to take our $40 million.
That's really funny.
Yeah. All right, so we both got Spider-Man. Let's move on to the other side of the bracket,
right.
I think. Let's do The Gift versus Darkman.
Ah, yeah.
The Gift, 6.7 IMDb score. Fortune teller with extrasensory perception is asked to help find a young woman who has mysteriously disappeared. Kate Blanchett, Katie Holmes, Keanu Reeves versus Darkman, 6.4 score. Way too low. A brilliant scientist left for dead returns to exact revenge on the people who burned him alive. Liam Neeson, Frances McDormand, and Larry Drake, the great Larry Drake. Willie, who you got here?
Darkman is Sam Raimi making a Batman movie.
Yep.
But not having the rights to Batman. It is a perfect blend of his appreciation and love for superhero stories, which he was able to really get crazy with in the Spider-Man movies, and his love for gothic horror, which is something that he was able to touch upon a lot actually in Army of Darkness. A lot of the gothic horror stuff in Army of Darkness. It's known as a comedy, which it very much is, but there's a lot of gothic horror imagery in that movie. And in Drag Me to Hell, actually. But he gets to blend those two things, and it's very, very cool. Love Darkman. And Neeson, The Gift. The Gift is kind of a cool, taut thriller with a supernatural element.
It's restrained,
that's really
Raimi. That's the better word than castrated that I was looking for.
Sure.
But restrained,
Raimi.
Yeah.
And I will. This might be a shocker, but The Gift wins for me in this one.
Whoa! All right, I like it.
Really like Darkman.
Good.
I really, truly do. I think it's a ton of fun, and I think it's very fun to watch Raimi merge those two loves and passions of his. But I think The Gift rules. I think the cast kicks ass. I love the story. I love the twists and turns. It's dark. It's dripping with just Bayou. Not B.O., well, probably some B.O. too, if you see some of those characters in The Gift.
Keanu.
He is gnarly in that movie.
Yeah.
It just
and this is the script by Billy Bob Thornton. I think we mentioned it. I forgot to mention it here, but this is the one that's written by Billy Bob.
Right. It's got that supernatural element that Raimi likes to play with. It doesn't feel overly Raimi in a lot of ways. It's not what you'd expect him to do. But then again, Raimi's a master of expect the unexpected because he's done a lot of different stuff. I mean, even Spider-Man wouldn't have been an obvious choice at the time.
Well, The Gift kind of got him this, didn't
Crazy
it?
enough, right?
Yeah, because they kind of wanted to see him. The Gift is him without kind of relying on that bag of tricks that he had, and I think For Love of the Game is a little bit too, but it's without him relying on that kind of kinetic camera work. It's him telling a story in a restrained way, but also a very suspenseful way too.
And I think The Gift has some downright scary moments. It has some kind of tear-jerky moments. It's, I mean, look, I'm gonna be up front here.
Oh, we're gonna talk about this, yeah.
We got to address it.
You know what? We do have to address it because it was a big deal at the time.
We have to address this, okay? Yeah. Katie Holmes.
This is for historical purposes.
Yes.
We're talking about for the next.
And I was a teenage boy when The Gift came out. What year did The Gift come out?
98, 99, I think. 99.
Okay. I was 13 years old. Okay. So I was a teenage boy, and
2000, by the way.
I was 14 years old, which is
same thing.
Right about, yeah. And I was a young man, and Dawson's Creek was very popular at the time, and Katie Holmes was a very popular actress from Dawson's Creek at the time. I had seen her in some movies like Disturbing Behavior. I had a big crush on Katie Holmes, and one of the big things to come out about The Gift somehow during the initial press stuff was that like Katie Holmes is you see her breasts.
And now looking back on it, this is
Gift.
probably one of those gross things that a studio leaked or something to kind of sell this movie because they knew they had like a weird supernatural thriller.
I'm sure
that wasn't going to. That was like just going to hit on like cable.
Somebody threw that like, hey, make sure you mention that you see Katie Holmes.
Well, I mean, do you remember Swordfish? How they marketed Swordfish?
It was see Halle Berry's breasts.
Yeah,
yeah,
same thing.
Which, and both scenes with the gift, the scene doesn't feel gratuitous. It feels like it's just part of the movie, right?
Exactly. I don't.
With Swordfish, it's very gratuitous.
Swordfish is ridiculous. But you know what?
Swordfish is sunbathing half the movie.
Swordfish is a trashy movie anyway, so I don't think anybody.
The first DVD I ever owned. Swordfish. Now I know why my dad.
You're right, though. I don't think this is
first.
gratuitous. It is. It's just I mentioned it because it is kind of gross the way they sold it. Yeah.
I agree. Yes, and whether or not that was the studio or just people who saw the movie, it definitely was. There was buzz about the fact that you got to see Katie Holmes' breasts.
And we are not anti-nudity. We are not prudes on the show. I just
sometimes I just don't want people to think that we're.
It comes off a little skeevy when people are just like, "Hey,
let's talk
watch
about
this."
But look, at the time, I was a young man, a young straight man,
right.
And I was very attracted to Katie Holmes. I was very excited to see her breasts. But so I might have rented the movie.
Greg Kinnear is in the scene with her. Right?
He is. Yeah. It's a very disturbing scene too, actually.
Very much so.
Yeah. So any excitement or arousal I got from it at 14 was dashed pretty quickly when Kinnear got
I think it's the only real nudity, maybe. Maybe Evil Dead movies might have some. I think the Evil Dead movie has one of them because it wasn't when she's dancing, she's naked, right? And she flies off.
I believe so. Yes.
But other than apparently Kevin Costner for Love and League, Sam a very equal opportunist though, when it comes to the nudity.
Shows off some Costner dick. Why not? So yes, so I may have rented the film, and I don't remember. I may have rented the film from my local video store for the reason I had heard.
It worked on teenage boys,
and I did, and I'm
not going to lie.
I am sure that's why I rented
it. It's probably why I went out of my way to watch it.
But I will say this: I came for the Katie Holmes.
Thanks for finishing.
I came for the Katie Holmes breasts. And I stayed because I really enjoyed the film.
It was funny as you finished it, it didn't get any better.
I know, right? Yeah, it still sounded bad. I rented the film with the purpose of seeing Katie Holmes' breasts. And I stuck around and watched the rest of the film because it actually, I think, is a pretty cool movie. And it beats Darkman for me. I know it's crazy, but Darkman's got no Katie Holmes boobs.
It's got a pink elephant, though.
It does.
So you got gift. Good job. I loved your reasoning. I love Darkman. It's this big, like horror / superhero movie that I don't think we've gotten enough of. What have we gotten of these? Maybe Blade. You count?
Blade is definitely 1 foot in the horror realm, no question. Maybe a couple feet in, actually. Hellboy.
Right.
Hellboy would be one.
I guess the Ghost Rider movies kind of count, but
the Ghost Rider movies are on the cusp there. That's just another reason I'm excited for Moon Knight.
Right.
Because I think that we could finally... And Doctor Strange, it doesn't do enough of it for me. I hope Raimi's able to do more with the sequel.
But the fact that we're struggling to name these tells me that we have not got enough of these kind of hybrids. Yes. It's very... It's also, it's him making a Batman movie. It's him making a better Shadow movie than Frank Miller. It was Frank Miller that made the Shadow, right? Better movie than he could ever hope to dream of making.
Oh, I know. He was trying to make the Shadow. That was the original plan.
It's quotable. It's weird. It's not like the Spider-Man movies.
No.
It's pretty unfiltered Raimi early on in his career, so you're still getting that. The Gift is good. It's got a really good Keanu performance. I think you mentioned that. It's one of those... I don't know. It's definitely worth a watch. So I will say this, if maybe you are listening to us and you haven't seen a couple movies on here, I think The Gift and A Simple Plan are two movies that are horror related and that you should go out of your way to check out because I think they're both definitely worth a watch. And even though I'm not like super crazy, it's also been a long time since I've seen The Gift. So there's that factoring into it too. And Darkman is fresher in my memory because I kind of watch Darkman whenever I can. So I've got Darkman here, but The Gift is good.
I agree.
So... Army of Darkness, number 3 seed, a sardonic with a 7.5 score, which is really high. A sardonic, but I get it.
I thought you were just you were still reading the synopsis. A sardonic with a 7.5 score, and I'm like, that sums up Ash.
You're right. A sardonic hardware store clerk is accidentally transported to 1300 AD, where he must retrieve the Necronomicon and battle an army of the dead so he could return home. Bruce Campbell, Embeth Davids, I've never been able to pronounce that. Embeth Davids, and Marcus Gilbert. Then it's going up against Crimewave. A pair of whacked-out cartoon-like exterminator hitmen kill the owner of a burglar alarm company and stalk the partner who hired them, his wife, and a nerd framed for the murder. This is taken straight from IMDb, so good for them, who tells the story in flashback from the electric chair, starring Louis Lasser, Brian James, and Bruce Campbell in a smaller role. All right, Willie, who you got here?
Not Crimewave.
Right.
Yeah.
We should mention Crimewave was, I believe, co-written by one of the Coen brothers, I believe Joel.
Yeah.
And Raimi's disowned it completely.
He has. I have not seen Crimewave in a long time. I know I've seen it at some point. It's been a long time, admittedly. I don't remember thinking it was very good. I think Army of Darkness rules.
Yeah.
For a long time, it was my favorite Raimi movie. That has changed, but I still think it's really great. And I think it blends horror and humor, mostly humor, but horror and humor, and just this zany fish out of water story in this medieval setting, and it's all on a budget, and it's just crazy he pulled it off. I mean, he's using like goofball Evil Dead 1 tricks and 2 tricks. He's using like Ray Harryhausen effects. I mean, like he's throwing the kitchen sink in there, and sometimes that works. You get the impression that it's almost like Spider-Man 3 in some ways, where you get the impression that like, whereas in the case of Spider-Man 3, everything was getting chucked at the wall to see what would stick because he was trying to please everybody but himself. With Army of Darkness, you get the vibe there. He's like, I'm never going to get this much money to make a movie like this again, so I'm just going to go absolutely apeshit, and I'm going to make myself happy. So it's 2 instances of Raimi throwing everything at the wall, and the one that works is the one where he's at least doing it for, I think, the right reasons, or for, maybe selfish reasons, but I think it works. Yeah, it's Army of Darkness, no question.
So I've got Army as well. I love Army of Darkness. It's become this kind of weirdly divisive movie, I think, in some ways, because it's not horror. It's the first one I believe I saw, because Army is the one that like gets quoted all the time that I knew. Like Army was like
This is my boomstick.
This is my boomstick.
Yeah.
Like this was the stuff that like, and it was the movie that I remember the advertisement ran for in every comic book.
Every single comic book. For years, by the way, I did not know. I saw Army of Darkness before I saw Evil Dead 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that there was any relation
between them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember like being in the video store one time, and like this like the coolest dude in school at the time was in there as well, and he had Army of Darkness. He's like, dude, we gotta watch this. This is the best. so it is, though in a way it is this, because it is, a lot of it is not horror related at all.
No,
like you said, it's straight up slapstick comedy.
It's a comedy. But there's horror.
There are horror
elements in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also where Ash became a cartoon character. But it's also, Campbell's so good at playing that character. Like, I don't care. And Raimi's so good at torturing Campbell while he's playing Ash.
He absolutely is. Raimi's a terrible person to his friends.
Yes. There are some fun like behind the scenes features. Like he always beats up his lead actors. And mostly actors, if I recall correctly, because it's Toby, too. He beats him up a lot in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
So it's all playful, it seems.
Is Cumberbatch going to be okay? Is he going to make it through this?
I hope not. My wife's got a big crush on him, so hopefully Sam beats the crap.
He's got to go.
Yeah, he's got to go. Get Sam on Loki next. We talked a little bit about Crimewave. Bruce Campbell said that the film wasn't released, it escaped. So that
Yikes.
about sums it up.
Yikes.
This was a disaster production-wise. I would point anybody, just as a good read, if you haven't read the Bruce Campbell autobiographies, both of them, but particularly that first one, I believe it's called If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor.
Right.
He goes into a lot of behind-the-scenes stories on those early Evil Dead movies, but also this movie, and he talks about just what a debacle this whole thing was behind the scenes. he was originally supposed to play the lead, and I believe Sam wanted him for the lead for Darkman too, and ended up getting him in. But this was always
kind of worked out in a weird way.
It always added to it adds to the legend of Bruce. For a while, because that was the thing I remember growing up is like Bruce always should have been a leading man in every movie ever. but then if you like ever saw it, like maybe you didn't want it. Yeah. Like maybe it's better in your head the way it was. But he talks about where's this one story before we move on? According to Bruce Campbell, Louis Lasser was under the influence of cocaine. She fired her makeup artist. She insisted that she apply all her own makeup despite objections from the cast. She would often show up with poorly applied clown makeup and messed up hair, oblivious to how she appeared.
Oh my God.
So this whole thing was Raimi hates it. He's called it just a horrible, depressing scene. I think it's worth a watch for completists. Particularly, I think even Coen Brothers complete us, but Raimi complete us as well. There's some fun slapstick stuff. There's one scene in particular where it's basically just a big Looney Tunes Tex Avery style scene where a guy's running through like buildings and it's and like walls and stuff. And it's Raimi. It's the best part of the movie. It weirdly has stuff in common with Spider-Man 3 at times because of the studio interference and just Raimi at times saying, F it. I'm just going to do stuff I like. But it's bad. So Army of Darkness is the winner here. All right, let's finish this side of the breakdown. Spider-Man 2, Peter Parker is beset with troubles in his personal life as he battles a brilliant scientist named Otto Octavius. This one stars Toby and Kirsten Dunst and Alfred Molina. It's got a score of 7.3, and it's our 6th seed, which was low, I thought, but... The Quick and the Dead is our 11 seed at 6.4. A female gunfighter returns to a frontier town where a dueling tournament is being held, which she enters in an effort to avenge her father's death. Russell Crowe, Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman.
I just want to start this by saying The Quick and the Dead rules.
This is a bad matchup for Quick and the Dead.
I really wish The Quick and the Dead was going to make it further than this because I actually think it's one of the better like post Eastwood era westerns. Like
this came out in the early mid 90s when like stuff like Maverick, a lot of like westerns were coming around.
There was a bit of a western resurgence, and most of them were not very good.
Right.
Well, I don't think that's fair. Most of them felt, and I like Maverick. Most of them felt like big silly family westerns, like almost like bring your family to watch Maverick, like Mel Gibson goof around in Maverick. Does that make sense? But Quick and the Dead is like dark and kind of gritty and nasty, and feels like feels like tonally like an old spaghetti western where like every character is kind of a shithead, and you're not necessarily rooting for anybody, but like you still want to see the worst of the bad guys get it. You know, in this case, Gene Hackman. I like Quick and the Dead. I think it's got a killer cast. Awesome. Hackman is unbelievably good. I really like Quick and the Dead. But Spider-Man 2 is like a perfect movie, right? Like, when I think of Spider-Man 2, I can't think of anything wrong with Spider-Man 2. And that, like, it's not one of my favorite movies of all time. It's not like in my top 10 of all time or anything crazy like that. But I do think it's on the list for me of like perfect. Like it does everything. It accomplishes everything it sets out to do. Like it's yeah. So it's Spider-Man 2. There's no question. It's one of if not one of the best, if not the best sequels of all time as well. I think that's important to mention. I don't think that sequels are always very good. I think most people would agree. I think there's certainly some instances, but Spider-Man 2 is like. Yeah, it's heads and shoulders above the original, and it's phenomenal. Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 for me as well. Like you said, it's a bad matchup for Quick and the Dead. I would be remiss to not mention Quick and the Dead would be my wife's pick. She loves Quick and the Dead.
It's a cool movie.
It is very cool. And yeah, it's a very entertaining A very entertaining Western from around that time. The piece of trivia I wanted to bring up here, Sharon Stone was given a lengthy list of directors that had been approved to direct this film so that she could choose the director she thought would work. This is according to the Evil Dead
Sharon Stone
Companion.
was a big deal at this time,
Yes.
by the way.
Yep. And she sent back a list with a single name, Sam Raimi. When asked why she chose Raimi, she said it was because she liked Army of Darkness. So there you go. Sharon Stone has great taste in films.
That doesn't surprise me. She's a badass.
So yes, she's a badass in this movie. So yeah, I've got Spider-Man 2 as well. All right, you ready to go on? Let's do this. Let's knock out this next round.
Yeah.
So we have the 1 seed, finally.
Okay.
Because we had to, this one and Evil Dead got to buy. So Evil Dead 2 versus Drag Me to Hell, which is quite an interesting matchup.
It is an interesting matchup. And, man, you know, I mean, like, Evil Dead 2 is like it is like, for so many people, Evil Dead 2 is like the hallmark. It's like the classic. For a lot of folks, it's the greatest, the best of all time. I'm probably going to lose some listeners. For me, it's Drag Me to Hell on this one.
All right.
I think Drag Me to Hell, I love Evil Dead 2. I think it's great, but I've always been one to have a softer spot for Evil Dead 1. I think it's because that was the one I had a copy of on VHS, was Evil Dead 1, not Evil Dead 2. I watched it about 1 billion times. It's a little bit meaner than Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 is a little more, certainly more fun than Evil Dead 1. Because all the silliness and goofiness of the first Evil Dead movie are not intentional, really. It's a result of, like, it's a bunch of kids making a horror movie in the woods. Evil Dead 2, it was intentional. But I think Evil Dead 2 is incredible. Like, Drag Me to Hell rules. Like, it's Raimi. It's like I said before, it's Raimi. It's a more mature, been through the shit Raimi making an Evil Dead movie, essentially. Because that's what he's doing. That's all. This is an Evil Dead movie in a lot of ways. And it's funny. It's sad. It's scary. I think it rules, and I think for me, Drag Me to Hell is one of his best movies. Period. So I'm going Drag Me to Hell. I'm not going to apologize for it either.
Don't apologize.
I'm not gonna.
Okay, so I've got Evil Dead 2 here. Evil Dead 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's the perfect blend of Raimi for me. It is slapstick, it is Looney Tunes, it is horror, it is just an unrelenting gore fest for the first half. It's nuts. And I think when you put it in the context of its time too, it's just crazy. And it's just a guy cutting loose after the experience of the shitty experience he had on Crimewave, and using a lot of what he had learned from that and just going all out. And I think it's awesome. That said, Drag Me to Hell is also great. Like this is not anything against. I will not say anything bad about Drag Me to Hell. What gives Evil Dead 2 the advantage for me, I guess, is just that it fits more, and it's also that perfect blend of Ash. And in a way, it reminds me of Freddy and Dream Warriors, where he's not like superhero Ash from the later movies. Not jokey. He's just. He's Ash. He becomes,
I'm with you.
Yeah, he becomes a little bit sillier later on in the movie. He becomes Ash in the second half of the movie. He's even talked about that. It also has one of the greatest jokes of all time, which is where he cuts his arm off and he looks at a copy of Hemingway's Farewell to Arms.
Which is really one of the great. Yeah.
One of the great. And that's the thing with Evil Dead 2 is everything sets up a hilarious gag to me.
All of it.
Yep. All of it is it sets up this horror and then it releases with just a ridiculous moment, just a ridiculous gag. So I love Evil Dead 2. I used to watch it on my birthday every year. I missed the last couple, sadly. All right, so we both have a Simple Plan versus Spider-Man in the bottom half, correct?
Yes.
Who you got here?
So I've not seen a Simple Plan in a little bit. It's been a bit since I've seen it. I wanted to watch it before we recorded. I did not get a chance to, so I don't get to watch much of anything anymore. I watch a lot of wrestling.
Wrestling, that's in Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Macho Man. What is he? Bonesaw, right?
Oh, God, what a performance. What a scene that is.
It's really great.
It's like the best scene in the movie.
It's fantastic. For me, it's going to be Spider-Man, but I will say this. I feel like if I rewatch Simple Plan, it could there could be a shift. And I want to throw that little caveat in there. It is Spider-Man moving on for me, because I think it's one of the great comic book superhero origin stories ever translated to film. But I do think Simple Plan would have a chance, possibly, with a rewatch of Dethroning. Maybe I'll watch it in time for our next episode, and I'll come back and say, okay, it took the spot.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of this episode, Spider-Man is going to move on for me.
There are two matchups here in the second round where I do not have a pick, and this is one of them because I can't. This is really tough, and weirdly enough, I'm going with like the same explanation as you because I've seen Spider-Man more recently, and I went, "Oh, this holds up way better than I thought it did."
Right.
But I know A Simple Plan is like perfect too.
Yeah.
It's been so long. But I'm going Spider-Man just because I have such a soft spot, and I remember being there opening night and that feeling. That's what it is for me. It's that feeling and that connection of being there opening night and going, "Oh my God, they got it right!" Like that was that's the thing
for sure.
By this point, I was a big Spider-Man fan, and a lot of it comics, but also the cartoon. And by this point, the X-Men movie, yes. But even that was just missing something.
Okay, so I was just going to say, here's the difference, Tim, and I think you'll agree, between that experience of seeing Spider-Man versus X-Men. I was just as excited, if not more so, going into X-Men the movie when it came out as I was with Spider-Man, because I was a fan of both things. Those are the two big 90s things were X-Men and Spider-Man. And there's a reason why those movies got made first, right? But I remember walking out of X-Men having enjoyed it, having had fun, and been like, that was cool. But never once did I look at the screen and go like, it's the X-Men fighting Magneto. Because they were all just wearing black Matrix suits. And like they felt like the characters most of the characters felt like the characters from the comics, but it just never fully clicked where I went, I'm actually getting to see the live action characters. Like the comic book is on screen right now. The only time I'd experienced that beforehand was Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, good.
Where I was like, oh my God.
That's a pretty good comparison.
These are the Ninja Turtles. Yeah. Like, they are exactly what I wanted. And then I saw Spider-Man, and I was like, holy, this is Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. The costume is the costume. Peter Parker feels like Peter. Like, everything. It felt, for the first time, like I said, since 1990, seeing that Turtles movie, it was the first time I went, like, I got to feel the magic of something I loved so much coming alive. And it sounds corny, but it's true. Like obviously it was a little different from watching the Turtles in 1990 and being a kid and almost believing that they were real. I knew that Spider-Man was not real. I knew it was Tobey Maguire, but for a moment there I got lost in it and went, holy shit, that's Spider-Man. He's like swinging through the city.
Right.
Like, this is actually, like, I'm seeing this in real. Yeah. So anyway, that's the difference I think between Spider-Man and X-Men, is that Raimi was able to like really make you feel that, you know. Like, they captured...
And I think his filmmaking style, too, and even, like, not knowing it really as a kid, but all just, like... some of the CG doesn't hold up, I'll grant you that. Yeah. But there are moments where you feel like you're swinging with Spider-Man because of the way he moves the camera. And you're like, I'm in there. And the other thing, too, is I remember taking my mom, like, a week later to the movie. We took her for, like, Mother's Day, and she loved it, too. And I'm like, awesome. And I remember this being around the time I was getting super into movies, and I knew Sam Raimi from the Evil Dead movies at the time, but I was getting super into movies, and I remember this being kind of like a gateway to more things. So I've got Spider-Man as well. I'm sure, like, A Simple Plan, I'm sure is the better movie.
Yeah, right.
But, like, I can't do it to Spider-Man.
I can't right now. No.
Yep. Other side of the bracket, I've got Evil Dead versus Darkman. You've got Evil Dead versus The Gift. Who you got in this round?
Evil Dead. Okay. I watched it 1,000 times on VHS. It's Evil Dead. And it's another situation where it's like, it's not even necessarily in like my top tier of horror films ever, but it was incredibly important. That VHS copy I burned out because I was obsessed with the effects and like I said before, like seeing the strings and going, oh my God, like I understand how they made this movie. Even if I couldn't do it myself, I get it, you know, which is cool. So yeah, it's Evil Dead for me. The Gift rules though. Like, if you haven't seen The Gift or you haven't like rewatched it in a long time, check it out. It's actually like, I think it's quite good. Yeah. And I think it's actually a little bit ahead of its time, to be honest with you. It feels a little bit like some of the James Wan stuff that we're seeing now that's becoming popular to me.
It also had a Keanu performance that people love to point to as like, hey, Keanu can be like good.
Yes. Yeah. He's very good in the movie. Yeah. He's very good. So the whole cast is great. Yeah. Ribisi's really good too. Giovanni Ribisi, yikes, man!
I forgot he was even in
that
there.
That's a talented actor.
What a good
Man,
cast.
man.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I forgot to mention Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2's got a 7.7 score. Evil Dead 1's got a 7.5 score, and it's number 2. That's a 2 seat. So we haven't talked about Evil Dead yet. But anyway, I've got Evil Dead and Darkman. This is the other one where I haven't made a pick.
Here we go on the fly, right? That's tough.
Evil Dead, and it's a lame Final Four, but I knew it was going to be my Final Four anyway, because it's just going. Oh well, we haven't got to the other pick yet.
You want to do it now?
Yeah. So Army of Darkness and Spider-Man 2. I've got Spider-Man 2. Yeah. So it's mine is Evil Dead and Spider-Man, and I knew it was going to be. But
yeah, of course. I get it.
And you've got Army of Darkness versus Spider-Man 2 as well, right?
Yeah, and for me, it's also Spider-Man 2. Army of Darkness rules. It's a ton of fun. Spider-Man 2, like I said, it's perfect. It's Spider-Man 2. No question.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2 is perfect. Army of Darkness I love, but Spider-Man 2. All right, so you have Drag Me to Hell versus Spider-Man.
Yes, I do.
On that side of the bracket. So who do you have between those two movies?
Drag Me to Hell. I love Drag Me to Hell, dude.
Right.
I think it's like I said, for all the reasons I said before, it's very funny. It's very gnarly. You know what I kind of love about it? It's still got the fun and the joy and the earnestness of Raimi's movies, but it also has this element of anger and cynicism to it that his other movies don't have, because he's been through Spider-Man 3 at this point.
He names a character Jim Jacks in the movie, I think, and Jim Jacks was like the president of Universal around the time. Like, so I think it's like a shot at one of the heads of Universal at the time. David Paymer's character, I think, is named Jim Jacks.
I believe so.
He's like a weasel.
Yeah, he is. He's a total weasel. And
Sam is not a mean guy when you see him.
No, but I think he gets a little mean in this one.
Yes.
And the ending is like one of the meanest things I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, the nicest, purest, most Raimi-esque character in a lot of ways, played by Justin Long, has goes through like the most traumatizing thing anybody I think has ever gone through on cinema. I won't say any more if you haven't seen it, but the film ends on a crying Justin Long, who's like this really sweet character all the way through.
It's the best ending ever.
It kicks ass. It kicks so much ass. Spider-Man 1's incredible, and it's like I said, it really holds up, and it's great. It's fun. Dafoe's amazing, but like it does in some ways feel like an early superhero movie, like an early of that generation. There are moments where you go, this is early days and he hasn't perfected this yet. He would. And I think a lot of people would argue that it's arguable that it hasn't been surpassed what he would do next, but I do think there's enough little flaws, minor nitpicks in Spider-Man for me for Drag Me to Hell to take that spot. So, yeah.
So I have Evil Dead.
The goat, man. The talking goat. That's the best scene.
He is.
That's the best Raimi scene.
I made a Black Phillip joke a few weeks ago about the goat, but that goat is the goat.
The goat. Yes, he's the goat. Yeah, he's the best, man.
Yeah, he would kick.
He's cackling and shit. In that
he
movie.
would kick the shit out of Black.
He
Phillip.
would. He'd fuck him up. And he's just a head, isn't he?
Who's that?
No, he's
full. He's full.
Yeah, he's a full goat.
He bites someone in that.
It's so sweet. God damn it. Anyway, sorry.
I have Evil Dead 2 versus Spider-Man. I'm going to pick Evil Dead 2. I guess the reasoning here, Spider-Man loses a little bit of steam at the end.
It does.
I think the first half is the best part. We talked about the idea of seeing that comic book stuff on screen. It was seeing Uncle Ben's murder on screen, weirdly enough.
Yeah, sure.
That kind of stuck with me.
Of course.
It's that at the peak of the movie, honestly, that first Spider-Man movie, well, there are a couple. It's the wrestling scene, and Randy Savage is really good at it, but Bruce Campbell is on fire as like the announcer.
Oh, he's having a great time. Yeah.
So he's great. But I also love those montages when he first becomes Spider-Man too, and I love when Lucy Lawless shows up. She says like 8 arms, huh? Sounds kind of hot.
Oh, that's right.
So I love so much of that.
Is that Lucy Lawless?
Yeah.
How did I never know that?
She's got the weird punker.
How did
hair.
I never know that was Lucy Lawless?
It's Lucy Lawless. It's
You're
a
shitting
great
me.
cameo. Yeah, because
How did I not know that until now?
That's part of the love I have for that movie. Is it's Raimi pulling in from like his Xena.
That's really funny. Yeah. I did not realize that was her. Okay, all right.
But it loses a little bit of steam once the superhero stuff kicks in, and maybe what Raimi does so well in the second movie is he finds that perfect balance between Peter Parker personal and Peter Parker superhero. And I don't think it's quite there in the first movie because it feels like two different movies.
Yeah, the action scenes in the first movie are kind of they're okay. And I think that's what you mean by super. There's a couple. The house on fire, the apartment on fire scene when he's jumping and dodging the goblin blade things is really cool.
Yeah.
And the final fight when it's legitimately Maguire and Dafoe in costume and Maguire just blasting Dafoe.
Yeah.
It's really good because the
really
emotion
brutal
is
too.
Yeah. That stuff works. But like anything where they're swinging and flying and stuff, it's I think the action scenes in Spider-Man 2 are like insane. Yeah.
So I've got Evil Dead 2 on that side. So on the other side, you had Evil Dead, and you also had Spider-Man 2. So we've got the same side of the bracket there. Who you got?
It's Spider-Man 2 for me. Love Evil Dead, but I've said it a few times. Spider-Man 2 is perfect. It's a perfect film. It's going to be tough to beat Spider-Man 2. We'll see if Drag Me to Hell can do it.
I've also got Spider-Man 2, whereas like Evil Dead... So the difference between Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 is Evil Dead 2 is my perfect Evil Dead film. It's got everything I want. And Spider-Man 2 is like my perfect Spider-Man movie. It's got everything I want from a Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Right.
So, okay, let's move on to the finals then.
All right.
You have Drag Me to Hell versus Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
I have Evil Dead 2 versus Spider-Man 2.
Right.
Who do you have in your matchup?
It's Spider-Man 2. I think that kind of weird that on Horror Movie Yearbook we're talking about Sam Raimi, and I'm going to go ahead and say that I think his best movie or my favorite of his films is Spider-Man 2, but I think it is. I think he's able to... It just feels like the perfect Raimi movie to me. He's got that heart. He's got that earnestness. He's got that kind of wide-eyed wonder and sweetness about his film. He's also got such an amazing sense of... it's such a daring sense of what he can do with the camera in certain scenes. And it's so dynamic, and it's shot in such a way that like a lot of filmmakers that were making a Spider-Man movie would be afraid to even attempt to shoot a big budget superhero movie that way. Of course, now that it'll all be done in previs before the director even was hired, but still, he's even able to pepper in some horror stuff with some of the Doc Ock stuff. He's even able to make that work. I just think he was firing on all cylinders by the time he got to Spider-Man 2, and I think it's a culmination of everything Raimi did up until that point, including things like Quick and the Dead, even things that were kind of, or For the Love of the Game, things that were kind of off the beaten path a little bit for what Raimi would become known for. I just think you can see elements of all those films peppered into Spider-Man 2 in the best ways possible. So, yeah, it's Spider-Man 2 for me. Drag Me to Hell rules, though. I'm just throwing it out there.
I will not argue that. And I had Drag Me to Hell going out very early, but it's because
I know it hurt your heart, though.
Yeah, no, it goes up against Evil Dead 2. And like I said, I think Drag Me to Hell is my second favorite Evil Dead movie.
It's an Evil Dead movie, in my opinion. Yeah.
Me too. All right, so confession time. I have Evil Dead 2 and Spider-Man 2, and I've always said my entire life, like, since they came out, obviously, or since I watched them, obviously, these two are in my top 10 movies.
Yeah,
of all time.
I know that they're way up there. Yeah,
I've never pitted them against each other in my head.
This is it, huh?
This is the first time I've ever done this.
Have you been giving this thought ahead of time, or is this kind of on the spot almost?
This is on the spot. And
man, I feel like I can't look at you.
I've thought about it, like, maybe a little bit in the past, but then it's like one of those things where like I can't even pick. I don't even want to do this.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's annoying. Like, don't make me pick. Hey, you're the one who wanted to do the Raimi bracket, so I blame you.
Part of it was for this moment here. You've got to do it. I've got to do it.
Eventually, you have to do this.
This is a bucket list moment for me.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Tim, you got to search your heart, man. You really do. It's important that they're both incredibly important films to you, right? I mean,
Yes.
In different ways.
All right.
It's very hard.
Evil Dead 2 is the winner. Okay.
Yeah.
So I should give some reasoning, and I'm going to say this right now. Spider-Man 2 is my favorite superhero movie of all time. And
Right.
It probably will always be, because it's my favorite superhero of all time. It's one of my favorite directors, if not my favorite director of all time. And it's a movie that captures everything I love about that character. Just the goodness and that balance between personal and human, and just I love that Spider-Man and his family are just so, like, he's got no money. He's just broke. All the time. It's my favorite.
Yeah. Sam does a good job of making sure to remind you of that.
Remind you how broke he is.
And some of the funniest scenes in those movies.
Yeah, and it's all about him and Aunt May, and it's my favorite run, and I don't think it's ever been topped. My favorite Spider-Man run is the Stan Lee stuff, the Stan Lee, Ditko, Romita stuff.
Yeah, sure.
That early stuff, and I don't think it's ever been topped. My second one is probably like the Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man run, weirdly enough, but it's such a different kind of.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's different but similar. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
But Sam Raimi captures that run so perfectly, and I think he does it in this movie. Evil Dead 2 holds a special place in my heart because this is one of those movies that I grew up watching with friends. And this was like a get-together movie for us. Like, we would have Evil Dead marathons. And we had a couple of them, and a few of them, actually. And it's one of those movies that's just ingrained in my DNA. And it's one of those early, like, it's one of the first movies, these and like Kevin Smith movies, where I just devoured all the special features and the commentary and learning about it. And I think it's Evil Dead 2 that has one of the greatest commentary jokes of all time. It might even be one. I hope I don't mess it up. Either way, there's a commentary that's got Bruce and Sam in it, and the camera goes through a screen, and Campbell runs through it as well, and Sam Raimi goes, "Oh, there goes Bruce looking for more screen time." I just remember laughing at it because it's so stupid. But that's Evil Dead 2 in a nutshell. It's irreverent. It's funny. It's just a big Looney Tunes horror movie, and I love it so much. And yeah, a lot of it is just because it holds that special place in my heart. And that's it.
Yeah, that's a very, very
yeah,
that's a very, very reasonable explanation for picking that movie. I don't think you could have got it wrong either way. So I'm proud of you though for doing it, because that's not easy. It really isn't easy.
Yeah.
You know, even today for me, anytime you pit one of my top 10 against another one, I'm like, I don't know, like,
yeah.
And it might change tomorrow, Tim. You might go, why did I pick this?
You know what? Even though I like the song, Evil Dead 2 does not end with a Dashboard Confessional song.
Yeah.
And for that alone.
Vindicated.
Do you like Vindicated better, or do you like Hero by Nickelback, Chad Kroeger?
They're both jams, buddy.
No, it's Hero, baby.
No, Hero's the best. No. I'll tell you this: if rumors are true,
and I don't mind Vindicated. Actually, I like that song.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I actually don't mind the Snow Patrol song from Spider-Man
3.
Yeah,
I kind of like that song too.
Good. And I'm not a Snow Patrol guy, but that's a pretty good song. I do not like the Sum 41 song though. In the credits of 2, I believe it is.
I think it might be 1
or 1.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Rock. It's what we're all about. It's what we live for. Come on, Sean. You're not a big Sum 41 guy?
No. And it doesn't fit anything about that movie whatsoever. Like, it's like weird. I don't know. Whatever. That was the time where they just throw shit on the soundtrack because it was selling at the time. And they just put this song on.
Hero and Vindicated fit the movie.
Yes, exactly. That's the difference. Anyway, if Tobey Maguire shows up and he's swinging, I've heard a lot of people say, like, man, I really hope he shows up and they play a little bit the Elfman theme. Yeah. And of course, that's what we all want. Mm-hmm. But if they just cut to Chad Kroger,
yeah, not all of us,
belting Hero as he swings by, that will be the end of me.
But
that'd be wouldn't you be done?
So here's the thing about that music video, because this is and I don't want to make the old that's what MTV used to play music videos thing, but that's when MTV used to play music videos. And the thing about back in the old days, like, I was such a nerd that I went and saw that movie, and I had to get every replay of it I could.
Sure,
so, like, when I was watching clips of it, even leading up to it, but even after it, I'm like, oh my god, that was that part in the movie.
Yes,
because the movie is like Chad Kroger and the dude from Saliva on top of.
It's so funny to me. It's so funny.
On top of it, whatever, man. I don't care. Hero is a jam. I don't. I want to hear anything different from any of you jokers out there who may say differently.
Can I just say real quick? I wanted to mention my my favorite Spider-Man run of
yeah, for sure.
comic wise. Where the Tom DeFalco's run, I'm a big fan of.
I really like his Spider-Girl series that ran for like 100
interesting.
or so
Yeah,
inches,
with
Mayday.
Mayday. Mm-hmm. DeFalco's run was right after Peter Parker came back from the events of Secret Wars, and he had the alien suit, but we hadn't done Venom stuff at this point. That was way later. But he had the black suit, and it was right after he got back from that, and like I love that run. So check it out.
Did DeFalco write the Clone Saga?
I don't believe so. No,
I don't put that on him, and I didn't mean that as like a slight, because the Clone Saga starts out well, and then it goes off the rail as it goes longer, if I remember.
Well, so
this is where we're going off the rails. But either way,
the problem with the Clone
Howard
Saga,
Mackey, Tom DeFalco. So it was like a bunch of writers. Yeah,
there are a bunch of writers, right? That's not the one I'm talking about. To be fair,
no. I didn't mean that. Yeah.
I don't think the Clone. Once they try to pull a fast one and say, Ben Reilly is the real. It gets silly. After
That's
that.
where it gets bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the concept is cool, but yeah, I still like Ben Reilly a lot. I have a soft spot for that character.
Is he still around?
Yes, he just joined the Midnight Suns not that long ago,
Cool.
I guess.
Cool.
Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So he's fighting demons and stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Cool, man. That was fun.
So there we go.
Good stuff.
That was fun. Willie, so this was kind of my pick, I will say. What do you want to do?
My word. Yeah, that's tough.
We can't do and we're gonna do it. I'm just putting it on. I'm putting it on record right now.
Yeah, throw it out there now.
We are doing that. The New Day from WWE Undertaker horror movie where you get to like choose your own adventure. This is great for any Final Destination DVD fans. By the way, any of the people out there that get to
Final
choose
Destination 3?
Thank you. I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 3, but 3 where you get to choose your own death.
What a weird concept, but it works so well.
So WWE Wrestling has made a movie coming out on Netflix next month, but it's not coming out until October 5th, so we've still got an episode in between. And we're also coming up on our 5-year anniversary that I texted Willie. I think that'll be our second episode in October, so I think probably what we're shooting for. So we need something in between. While Willie is looking and deciding, check us out, horrormovieyearbook@gmail.com. You can email us. If you want to still email your bracket, go for it. We'll read it. We'll check it out. We'll read it off. We've got an episode where we've got a couple of picks coming up. Check out patreon.com/MidwestPodnet. You can donate as little as $1 a month, and that'll get you access to our bonus episodes. And if you want to just help us out, chip in if you like what we do. If you're like, hey, those guys spent an hour and a half talking about Sam Raimi movies. They talked about Crimewave. Like, I want to throw them a buck. Go to patreon.com/MidwestPodnet and hook us up because use the money. As I mentioned earlier, my wife's charging things on my credit card. I gotta get home.
Help Tim. He needs a GoFundMe at this point. Sounds like.
Oh, Willie, what you got? Do you find anything?
I'm in the mood for a werewolf movie.
Perfect.
It's probably because I've been reading Moon Knight, and he fights werewolves sometimes, including Jack Russell, which is the best named character ever in a comic book.
Easily.
The question is, what werewolf movie, right? And I don't have an answer for you yet. I'm kind of trying to figure that out. I initially thought it'd be really funny to do Jack Nicholson's Wolf, but I don't think I can handle it.
You were right. It would be very funny.
It would be very funny. I had also thought about doing... Actually, I think I know what we're going to do. It's kind of a werewolf movie. Okay. But I want to see if it's available before I pull the trigger. So, give me a moment and we'll see.
I'm sorry. I googled the wolf. What Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And the first picture that pops up is him as Wolf.
Stop. Please don't. Please don't say that. I can't. You're making me laugh too hard. It is him as Wolf. God damn it. Right. Let's see. Have you seen Brotherhood of the Wolf? Le
You know
Pack
what?
de
No,
Loup.
and I've always meant to.
We're gonna watch it. So
Okay.
it's available on Amazon for rental, $3.99.
Perfect.
So you'll have to pay for it. There's also a Scream Factory Blu-ray that just came out. If you're feeling brave, even though you haven't seen it, I guess it'd be kind of a brave call to just jump into it. Directed by Christoph Gans. I'm a fan of Christoph Gans.
We've talked about him before, correct? Because did he do The Divide?
That is, I believe, Javier Gaines,
Okay.
a different director, but similar.
Oh, he did Silent Hill.
Yes,
That's why we've talked about him.
That's why we talked about him. So,
In our Lost episode, if I recall correctly.
yeah, the one that didn't make it to the yeah. I'm still angry about that. So yeah, Brotherhood of the Wolf, Le Pack de Loup. It's got a heck of a cast: Vincent Cassel, Monica Bellucci, and Mark Dacascos.
Yeah, that's the first one I saw after. Yeah,
Absolutely.
After I Googled it. Is Dacascos.
This movie is crazy. It is part horror movie, part action movie. I think you're going to be fascinated by what you witness. It's kind of a werewolf movie, and I won't say any more. How about that?
Perfect. So we will be back next time with Brotherhood of the Wolf. Hey, everybody, thank you for listening. Stay safe.